Hi everybody. I got a really good question about rate of change, and so I want to talk about this and why we do it the way that we do it. And it all comes down to the units. I mean, we want to do this because we're presumably looking about something in real life. So let me show you an example here. Okay, so here's a graph, and it's just a made-up graph. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this graph gives us rainfall data. So it's raining, and the y-axis gives me inches of rain. And the units are important, inches. And the x-axis here gives me time in hours. And maybe I want to know how fast the rain has fallen at between certain period of time. So maybe like between 1 hour, here's where 1 hour is, and between 4 hours, here's where 4 hours are. So the points on the graph give us the rainfall at that point in time, at that one place in time. So when I have the point 1, 2, that's this point right here, that tells me that after 1 hour has gone, I've got 2 inches of rainfall. And let me use another color over here. I'll use a nice green up here. And this has at 4 for my x and also 4 for my y. So after 4 hours of time have gone by, I have 4 inches of rainfall. So they just tell you what's happening at that specific point in time. But maybe I want to know what happens as time elapses, as time goes by. How fast has the rain been falling? That's a rate of change. It's a rate because we're comparing the inches of rain to the time, and that's what rates do, or they compare two units. And it's a rate of change because it's telling me how much it will tell me how much the rainfall has increased. So this is actually an average rate of change. Okay. If you've ever taken calculus, you've learned about instantaneous rate of change, and we're not going to go there in this class. We're just going to work with average rate of change. And that happens to be what's called the slope. And it'll be the slope of the line that connects those two dots. Okay. Now, when we think about rate of change, if we talk about how fast the rain has been falling, we measure that in inches per hour, right? We don't measure it in terms of hours per inch. And so because we measure that in inches per hour, we want to put our change in inches. How many inches have we increased? Over our change in time. The word per means divide. If you think about miles per gallon in your car, you take the miles that you've driven and divide by the gallons that you've put in your car. So that per is telling you to divide. So this tells me that I need to know how much my inches of rain have changed. Well, my inches are my y value on this graph. So I have to put the change in y. I'm going to put a little delta there to indicate change, because that's my y-axis is inches. And then I would put my change in x underneath, because that's my change in time. Okay, that's why I do it the way that I do it. If I wanted to know how many hours per inch, that's also very valid. I could do that, but then I would put my change in X on top because time is hours and I'm doing hours per inch. Okay, so that's why we do it the way that we do it. Now, how do I calculate these things? Well, I can just look on my graph and I see that the y value here is 4 and the y value here is 2. So the distance between those is 2. It's 4 minus 2. And I can look on my x-axis. The x-axis here, the x value here is 4 and the x value here is 1. And so the way I find my change in x is I just subtract. 4 minus 1 is 3. And that's going to give me the answer that my inches per hour are going to be 2, because those are my inches, because my inches are my y-axis, divided by 3. And then I'll write inches, sorry about my writing, per hour. So that's the why we do the change in y over the change in x. It all comes down to the units that we're working with. And typically we want to have the y units per the x units, because that's usually how we set graphs up, is so that the x units are more independent and the y units depend on the x and x units that way. I hope this is helpful, and I'm happy to talk more about this if this did not answer your question. So please let me know in class and we can talk more. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.